Hey friends, this is Mark Suroviec, host of the Workplace Solutions podcast, inviting you to discover the joy of work.
So we're going right into episode 4, which is...
Hey Rhonda, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm good. We just finished up episode 3 of What is a Facilitator and Why Should I Care, part 1. And so we're moving into episode 4.
Mm-hmm. I hear you saying that I'm not a professional facilitator, experiential learning person, etc. So, should I care?
Yes.
Yes.
If I said no, this would be a very short podcast.
Well, then we're on the right track.
All right, here's our first 30-second podcast.
Podcasty winners.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Maybe that's the format we need to go over is to get a 30-second podcast. That'll win us the podcasty.
Love it.
I can't wait until we launch some of these and we have people who write in and say there's no such thing as a podcasty. Like, we know,
but you don't know that they won't someday.
Maybe we'll start giving them to other people.
There you go.
And I didn't introduce Rhonda at the beginning. So Rhonda, I think I want to introduce you in a different way every single time, which I think is fun. Rhonda is the former lover of Tom Brady of the New England Patriots. No, I'm kidding, Tom. That's not real. Don't look that up.
Giselle, he didn't mean that. Not my style.
No. No, Rhonda is a very intelligent, very gifted, and wonderfully caring human being who seeks to care for, and her primary focus is on the families of folks who are going through addiction. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I say fantastic on. I need a new word.
You can edit those out with your lip service.
My lip box. What's a lip box? Well, go back and listen to episode 3.
It'll take you back.
We're in a new episode. We didn't do an icebreaker.
What's your icebreaker, though? Let me hear this.
If you could have a superpower that wasn't one of the standard superpowers, so nothing that super strength or flying or the basic ones that Superman and all those folks have, what would a creative superpower be that you would have?
Creative superpower. I think that my superpower could be, but it's kind of like Superman because I was just thinking pogo sticking. I don't know where I would pogo stick to, but that would be a superpower.
Okay. Well, tell me more. I'm intrigued. I think our audience is. What does super pogoing entail?
It's more like kangarooing. Like you go really fast and you cover a lot of space, but there's no pouch and there's no baby. It's just me and the pogo stick. Just pogo sticking everywhere we go. But wait, I gotta come back. Mm-hmm. I think I need a pouch because if I go to the grocery store with my pogo stick, I'm gonna need someplace to put stuff.
Oh, it should be an infinite pouch.
Yes.
Like Santa's bag.
Yes. Superpower pogo sticking.
With an infinite pouch. I love that. You just be the kangaroo?
The kanga. Just go
The kanga. Love it. Oh, man. I thought I had mine, but I'm inspired now. I think I'm going to go with the ability to make bad foods more healthy. So you kind of wave your hand over it, and that deep dish pizza your body thinks is kale. Like, it still tastes like deep dish pizza, but has a lower calorie content, a bunch of vitamins and other things that I'm sure if I was a nutritionist, I'd know I need and want. But something where it tricks your body, not tricks, but actually molecularly changes the nutritional component of foods without changing the taste or the experience.
Nice. I'm on board with that one. Yeah, I like that one a lot. I want to try that when it comes out. We can pogo stick and eat good food. Yes.
You'll be pogo sticking. I'll be having like cheese sticks and going, I'm healthy.
Throw me a cheese stick.
Oh, man. So back to the actual question. If I'm not a professional facilitator or experiential learning person, why should I care? And for me, the answer is really why Workplace Solutions exists. So some of the biggest impact learnings that I've had in the last couple of years are about this idea of experience and memory and how they're tied to decision making and our perception of the future and our perception of what's going on and our worldview around us. So for those of you who are readers, two of my favorite books on this topic are Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman and The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath. Pretty much love anything that the Heath brothers put out, but that's probably my favorite book on this subject. In addition, a podcast that I've really enjoyed recently is the Being Known podcast by Dr. Curt Thompson. And a quote from the podcast really kind of encapsulates this idea for me. And Dr. Thompson says, "We pay attention to those things that are emotionally salient. And what we pay attention to, we remember. And what we remember becomes our anticipated future." And we could do, he does an entire series of podcasts on that. So
my brain's circling on that one because there's a lot in that. A lot.
I love that. It's so good. It's so good. So you have Kahneman and the Heath brothers having numerous examples of this fundamental principle that what we remember is extremely important. And this often has nothing to do with remembering the content of the training or the experience, but often is how we feel about life or ourselves or our environment or how people have treated us or responded to us. If you want to grow and change and learn or have team bonding, we think these things are most effective when they're part of a memorable experience. And most people aren't getting those experiences. I think of how many lousy PowerPoints or compliance trainings folks have had to endure. Or you're working with a new group of people for the first time and the leader has Googled icebreakers and has pulled up whatever the top selection is, and it must have something to do with tearing off pieces of toilet paper or picking a certain number of M&Ms, and then they say, surprise, you need to share an interesting fact for every M&M that you picked up or every toilet paper square that you pulled off. And I don't know how many times I've had to do that. Like, it's like you all are Googling the exact same one. Or they're like, okay, we don't want icebreakers. We want an interesting activity. Here's this one called the human knot, where we all reach out and grab our wrists and try to untangle. It's like, dear Lord.
Who thought of that one?
And it's a classic in experiential learning, but it's tired. It's at this point cliche, and yes, you can do things differently and bring them to life and all of that, but that's not a very high bar. Yes, I'm being a little harsh on folks Googling those things because they don't know. No one ever taught them. This is how you craft an experience, or even how is what I'm doing an experience? How is this Bible study an experience? How is this onboarding program an experience? And the Heath brothers cover that in The Power of Moments, Making Onboarding Experience. Fantastic chapter. How am I taking this training, even if it's an online training, thinking about how is that an experience and how do I tap into what's true about memory and emotions and play and feelings and bringing that to life so that what you do has an impact.
I think too, Mark, just a little aside from there is, I think sometimes as a facilitator you forget, or I forget, that movement is so big. So I can look at this torn toilet paper or count these M&Ms or grab someone's arm, but the experience starts to really settle in when people start moving and they're doing something that way. So that's another whole piece of this.
Oh, you read my mind. I think at some point, we will do a treatise on virtual programs and how to make them interesting and why in-person experiences tend to be superior to virtual experiences in terms of impact and memory recall. And a lot of it has to do with that multisensory and movement, is that my entire world on a virtual call is sitting the same place I work all the time. Mm-hmm. And that's not novel. Your brain doesn't go, hey, I'm somewhere different with different sensations and things to remember, different smells, different tastes. Even in a good program, might be getting out of my chair once or twice, but it's very challenging. And there are people who make fantastic virtual experiences. Workplace Solutions makes virtual experiences, but we try really hard to overcome that physical barrier because you don't remember much when you're sitting on your butt.
Yeah, and that's the truth. And whether you're virtual or in a classroom with 80 other people, you still need that movement to solidify what you're learning.
Absolutely. That's why we really try to combine play and work together.
That's why I like your title. It's talking about exactly what you're supposed to be doing, work and play.
Yep. It's not two things, it's one thing.
Yes.
And they come together
yes.
to make an ideal reality. So on this topic, I remember attending a Jennifer Stanchfield workshop. She is a very gifted trainer, experiential learning professional, has her own company, and I've attended several of her trainings. And one of the things that stuck out from one of those was this idea that how many experiences start with the legal documents, such as the waiver and the liability form and the informed consent and all of that stuff. And that stuff's important and it's necessary, but you can imagine you're excited or you're wary, either one, going to a place, and the first thing you do is fill out this form that says, I'm not going to sue anybody if we kill you. And it's like, whoa, hey, what just happened?
What are we doing?
If you're apprehensive, this is terrible. If you're excited, you're a little nervous, but still, like, it's not engaging. And so she challenged people to say, hey, yes, the waiver needs to get done, but how do we make that not the first thing? Or how do we make that not the focal point of the start of the event? And some of that has changed as technology has changed. So less and less folks are filling out a paper waiver when they get off of a bus or to their site, and their electronic waivers often give you the opportunity to do that ahead of time. But her point was, how do you build this engaging experience when the first thing, and we know from how the brain works, the first thing, the last thing, the high point and the low point are what's going to stick. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so you're already 1 for 4 in going, well, that was not a good start.
No, definitely not. Like, a waiver on what is going to happen next? I'm not sure. Yeah, no. And your partner could be going, I'm not doing this. We're not doing. Don't fill that out.
Yeah. And the legal team of Workplace Solutions informs us we are not offering legal advice.
And this is not legal advice. This is just creativity is what it is. How do you creatively have these things done so that people feel comfortable?
Exactly. And so because we value thanking people, I wanted to personally thank Jen for her example and all the training that she's given to folks, because really a lot of her wisdom has helped shape my core beliefs about facilitation and experiential learning. So thank you, Jen. Another thing I was thinking about, Rhonda, was one of the activity resources that I created in my previous job. A crowd favorite was a tabletop Rube Goldberg kit that you basically made a Rube Goldberg machine. So if you're not familiar with Rube Goldberg, Rube was a cartoonist who made these elaborately complex machines, and it would perform a simple function like turning on the toaster. So we'd have all these little buttons and dials and things falling over to turn on the toaster. And so if you have children who have ever had an 8th grade science project or an 11th grade physics project, trust me, I did a lot of YouTube searches when I was building this kit, and it seemed like those were the two primary ages that did it in school. Or you ever did this for team building, you understand that it's this kit where you're trying to make something elaborately happen. And so I led the team to design this kit, and it fit inside a single briefcase. And the briefcase had no words on it, no labels. It just sat there on the table. And so a group would come and they would see that on the table, and there was just this sense of mystery and wonder, and go like, what's in there? And the staff were trained to not answer that question, to help build the anticipation. And folks just got excited. And yes, there's always a subset that freaks out if they don't have all the information. Like, it's going to be okay. But there's a box of mystery over there, and it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be very engaging. Folks will love this activity, and it's one of the favorite things that I've ever had the opportunity to create, and I'm eager to make Workplace Solutions version of this in the future. If you're interested, please let me know, because I love making these kind of things. The point of this, even the preparation for the activity, had a sense of intentionality about the experience. So it wasn't enough to just say, hey, we're going to do the tabletop Rube Goldberg today. It was, hey, we're going to display it in such a way that people get excited about it. So before it even starts, they're thinking about the mystery and the anticipation, and their sense of excitement and enthusiasm is up. And that changes how they think about and experience the activity. And that was just a home run for us.
It was a great experience too. I have done that, and that is a great experience.
I love it.
Yes. I'm waiting for you to create that one again so we can use that. Yes.
When I was designing that, I would bring it home and play with my daughters and have them, test it out for me. My daughter, my 9-year-old Peggy, is just absolutely just loves to play and is very mathematically inclined for a 9-year-old. And so she impresses me every time we do this stuff.
I love that.
But it was fun. We were just like, after dinner, hey, let's play with this. All right. So Rhonda, what about you? What's a memorable experience, either positive or negative, that has affected kind of future decisions or how you've thought about something?
Mark, I have no idea why I'm thinking this, but it really was a big one for me when we jumped off the pamper pole, which is, how tall is that pole?
About 32, 35 feet, somewhere in there.
In the air. And how big is that landing strip that you got to climb up on the top?
Much smaller.
Much, much smaller. And how many people have to sit on that little tiny thing?
Yep. So what Rhonda is describing is a ropes course activity where you climb up a telephone pole. You're on a rope. There's a belay team. It's secure. But the one that she was doing was designed for 2 people. So you and a partner would climb up and share a little bitty platform about 3 foot wide by 1.5 feet. And the 2 of you would get on that platform and leap for a trapeze bar.
So that is what I did. And I think, though, the climb up was not that bad. It was kind of like, I got this, me and my old lady thing, got this thing. It was at the top where I was with my partner thinking, are we both crazy or am I crazy? I mean, what am I doing up here? What is the purpose of this? Mm-hmm. And I don't think I realized the purpose of that until way afterwards. I think my adrenaline was so high that I was like, I just think you're crazy. Never do that again. But really the purpose of it to me was understanding that you can do more than you think you can, and that you can be more than you think you'll be, other than I have a tendency to put myself in a box, and it blew that box open for me, which was great and has helped me move forward a lot in things that I want to do for myself.
Absolutely. Rhonda, thinking about your experience on the pamper pole reminds me of a bet I made with a colleague where she is a big fan of her collegiate football team, the University of Washington. And I am a huge fan of my college football team, which is where my alma mater is, Penn State. And they had played each other several years back after a long absence. Our bet was if she lost, she had to climb the pole to the Penn State fight song wearing my Penn State hoodie.
Oh, no.
And shout, "We are Penn State," as she leaps for the trapeze. And if I lost, I had to do a choreographed dance that she designed, and she would film it and put it on Instagram.
I love this. Love it. Love it.
And she's a marketing person, so she has like 9 billion followers on Instagram. Thankfully,
She lost.
She lost. But I remember, like, what made it so memorable was she had never done that. And I didn't realize she hadn't when we made that bet. And she was scared and just really nervous. And I'm like, oh, crap, I don't want to force you to do something. And she's like, no, I lost the bet. I'm going to do it, even though I'm scared. And she went up there, and she was so brave. But I just remember going like, oh, have I made a terrible mistake?
That poll is intimidating in a lot of ways, especially when you're looking from the ground up. It's like, how tall is that? Because it looks like it's going into the clouds up there. Good for her. Yeah, she did good.
All right, Lisa, if you're listening, we love you.
And good job.
And good job. So what about on a memorable experience on the negative side? So what is, if you're comfortable answering the question, what is something where you had a negative experience and that negative experience changed how you were interpreting future stimuli? If you need to go into the Wayback Machine, so for your own safety.
We'll go back and say. So staff meetings of any kind for me they have to be interactive. You have to do something. You can't just sit down and drone out to people. And I was in a staff meeting, and it was just droning out to people. It was all one person's ideas, and here we go, and it's on. And it was 3 hours long. Ooh. And I know that you can't keep an audience attention that long. And so here we sat, and all my mind kept going, we know better than this. Why are we doing this? We know better. Why we know better than this? Why? So every statistic that came out, I got nothing for you. But I can tell you what I won't do in a staff meeting. I can tell you that there won't be sitting for 3 hours. So yeah, what I learned from there was, if you see a staff meeting like that coming, call in sick. Wow, I didn't mean that. Wait, I didn't mean that.
No. So lip box, 5 seconds backwards.
Yeah, really, thank you.
What I meant was, if there's a way to influence the design of the meeting without burning up all of your influence, then it's a worthwhile cause.
And that doesn't always happen either, because sometimes people that have these meetings, or facilitators even, when they're not in their right facilitation mode or haven't put the right hat on, can do that without thinking about the consequences of what's happening.
Absolutely. I know I have planned meetings and trainings like that where afterwards I went, man, was I really just talking that whole time? Oh, I think that was one of the reasons I started researching and getting to know e-learning and LMS, learning management systems, is because when I was doing ropes course trainings, I found myself just talking and talking and talking and talking and talking. And I was like, well, their time has to be better spent than listening to me yap. Especially if they could do that in the comfort of their own home. And I agree. It is hard to think this way. It is hard to design this way. It is hard to operate this way. Even when I was a supervisor, I would get into manager mode and realize, why am I not facilitating this conversation? We're talking about setting goals, my direct report setting goals, and I'm telling her things.
Yes.
It's like, oh, Mark, you're out of your mind.
And that happens more than you think, because we do get into those modes, which I'm going to go back to the manager hat for a second. And this is a good example of it. I may take that off, but because we think we know what we know and we really don't know anything, that hat comes on invisibly and we don't even think that it's on. We think, oh, I set that off to the side. And that's not the case. So I'm going to go back to, again, if you're a manager and you think you take your hat off, you might be Superman if it stays on the table. If you're not Superman, call a facilitator in to help to put this together. And the other thing with that talking is, if you've talked for more than 20 or 30 minutes, you're way overboard. You're trying to present your focus and your idea, and you're not listening to the group.
I think of how many well-meaning conferences both virtual and in person, where I've attended, and one of the first things the host or the primary speaker says is, hey, we're going to be drinking from a fire hose over these 2 days. They say that over and they're like bragging about, hey, we're going to shove so much information down your throat that you'll never remember any of it. And you'll go back to your organization and they won't ask, and you won't necessarily even present what you learned on. So whatever you remember is the only thing the organization gets the benefit out of it, which is other issues with that approach. But still, like, this idea of we're just going to content dump. So blasted with information over and over again. And that's not how people learn. That's not how people grow. You can't handle that, especially if it's been years since your primary role was being a student. Adults don't learn that way, or don't learn effectively that way.
Agreed. And so if I've just spent $1,200 or $1,500 to send you to this thing to suck out of a fire hose and come back with nothing to share, what have I gained?
Yeah. If I can host like a lunch and learn for staff that are interested, I think that's a fantastic avenue that doesn't take a lot of effort to pull off. Hopefully that shouldn't take a ton of bureaucracy to get something like that approved. Or you can do an informal lunch and learn where you just tell people, you're going to be telling them about what you learned at the conference. Mm-hmm. And I found that so often what you learn is just fire hosed into you, and then you come back and immediately you've got, weeks of email to catch up on and tasks. And depending on how well you prepared your team before you left, or you prepared your manager before you left, it's gone. And it doesn't have to be that way.
No, I agree. There are much better ways to do that. I like the lunch and learn, but there's a thing you have to remember about that too, is I call it information vomit. Mm-hmm. Like you come back with all this exciting stuff and you just want to spew it on everybody. And you really have to step back with even that and figure out, what do they really want to hear? And how can I give them what they hear so they ask me questions, mm-hmm. and I'm not the one talking, especially if it's over lunch, because I do want to eat too.
Yeah. If I went to a conference on the flight back, I would prepare, these are the main points of things that I learned and the potential actions I would invite for discussion or recommendations I would make as a result of this conference. That executive summary idea of, hey, here's my executive summary of the conference. I'd love to share more with folks. Can I have some time to present this in a time where folks can engage it? I've done that same thing. Here's everything I learned in 47 seconds. Yes. And being on the receiving end of that is not fun. No. I think we're coming to a head or coming to an end on this topic of why should I care? I really hope that we have presented at least the basics of a case for, and we've been a little off topic today, but present the basics for a case for this stuff is transferable to whatever you're doing. If you are in charge of a group for any period of time, how you craft that experience and how you use that time matters. And that's why knowing some of these facilitation skills and principles just make work more fun, make that group achieve their outcomes better.
Help them too. Yes, yeah. I agree.
All right, end of episode 4.
There's a lot of beeps coming in this one.
And I just lost it in my notes.